Or the infamous question that people ask online all the time, what advice would you have given to your 18-year-old self or to your early stages entrepreneur self? And I understand the concept of that question because it's great for you to reflect, like, what have I learned? Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But you wouldn't want to tell your old self that because you wouldn't listen. Otherwise, you would have done things differently. It doesn't matter. It took you this time to understand what you understand now. Now you better do something with it. So.
Welcome to the Life Coach Baker podcast. I'm Nicole Baker, life coach for perfectionists who want to set goals and actually follow through with them. I went to my first personal development seminar at the age of 1. Yes, I was quite literally born into this industry. But by 15, I started to implement this mindset mumbo jumbo I'd heard so much about, and it worked. As a recovering perfectionist myself, I've been able to set goals that are way out of my comfort zone and achieve them by doing things imperfectly, without self-judgment, and without the fear of their opinions. And now I help others to do the same. So if you are capital D done feeling like a hostage to this a-hole called perfectionism, then this show is for you. My goal is for you to leave each episode with tactical action steps that you can start to implement in your life now. I may be in my 20s. I may have the voice of a sassier Cinderella, but I've been doing this personal development-ish since I was a toddler. So let's dive in.
What is up, sweet, beautiful friends? Welcome back to another episode of the Life Coach Baker podcast. Today, we have a guest who has, since the time of our interview, actually, which was back in early June, has become one of the dearest mentors to me ever. Today we have Marta Spirk on the show. She is such a vivacious person. She is an author. She's a coach. She's a mother of triplets. Yes, you heard that correctly. She's a Tedx speaker. And we figured out, I can't remember if it was either on this episode or on her podcast, which, by the way, you should check out. It's called The Empower Woman. It's very good. We talked about how she was like, yeah, I'm in Denver. And I was like, shut up. Like, are you serious? I'm in Colorado. Like, let's be friends. And since actually that conversation, her and I continued talking, and I ended up joining her community, which is a big networking group. And most of them are in Colorado. It is online though. But I'm able to connect with people in my space. I was able to talk to her about TEDx and becoming a TEDx speaker. And it was literally one of those moments of serendipitous fate. One of the things on my vision board, which if you're on YouTube, I'm like staring at it right now, was a lot of photos. I can count 5 or 6 just off the top of my vision that were just women networking groups or people being together and just like this like hive mind collective basically. And I knew after 3-4 years of doing my business that I am at my best when I am in a community, hands down. When I am around people who are also doing really cool things in their businesses, who are also growing their dreams, who are also sharing what they're struggling with, because it's not all hunky-dory, my friends. That is where I thrive. And that's where I find my most creative and great ideas, where I'm able to bounce them off people. And I mentioned this to Marta, and she was like, so totally up to you, but I have that group. And I basically joined it the next day, and I have yet to, it has been one of the best decisions of my days. And it's so fun to now revisit this episode because it feels like her and I have come such a far, long way, since her and I chatted on this show. But a little bit of background of how her and I met. I actually reached out to her to be on her podcast. And then we were like, why not? You have such a cool story. Let's do a swap cast where she's on my show, I'm in her show. And it was so fun getting to record on her show. We talked about the 3 different types of perfectionism. She actually has a 3 types quiz as well. And I love it because it's all about what's your 6-figure type personality. And I immediately was like, girl, I'm taken that, and her and I were, unsurprising, the exact same type. We're the same Enneagram. It's really spooky, or like everything looks the same. But it was so fun to take the quiz, and I strongly recommend you all taking it as well. You can go and take her What's Your Six-Figure Type Personality on martaspirk.com. By the way, that's SPIRK, MARTASPIRK.com/quiz. It's totally free. It's super fast. It's really fun. But her and I also talk about on the episode as well. So it'd be fun to have that in your head as you go through. But I'm so excited to be sharing this episode with you. We talk about her book, The Empowered Woman, and it's just, wow, she's just amazing. So I'm going to shut up, and without further ado, let's dive into the episode with the incredible, very special to me, Marta Spirk. Welcome, Marta, to the show. I'm so happy to have you here.
I am so excited to chat. This will be fun.
This is like such an extra special moment, because I feel like the last time we chatted in this type of setting, in like a podcasting setting, I was on your show. It was like one of the first times we met. Now I'm a part of your program, and now like I see you on a regular basis, and now it's so fun having you on my show. This is such
I know.
a treat.
I am so excited to chat all things. I've been getting your emails because I took your quiz, and it's just so fun to be in your world as well. So,
oh my God. Well, speaking of being in each other's worlds, I'm curious, because I know a little bit about you just from being in your space for a minute, but I love for listeners to hear the deep dive. How did you get into this work? What is it you do? Also, is probably a good thing to start with, I'm realizing.
Well, I'm Marta Spirk. I'm an empowerment coach and marketing strategist. How I got into this, well, very long story, very short version. I'm from Brazil originally. I have 2 degrees in languages. My official career path has been in the translation, interpreting, or teaching of languages world. But in 2016, I had triplets, and that sent me on a very deep personal discovery journey. I also grew up in church, so that's a huge part of my life, and have always known from a young age, people telling me, you have this calling, you have this thing that you're supposed to do. There's a purpose, there's something big for you. And as much as I believed it, it also bothered me, because it's like everybody else does. Why are you telling me this? You're just trying to be nice. Yeah. And with having triplets and like my entire life leaving everything behind in Brazil to move to the United States to marry my husband, like the whole whirlwind that my entire life has been for the last 30 some years. Yeah. It culminated with this moment of, I need to figure out what is it that I want to do. And I know it's not being in the behind the scenes as an interpreter. It's not just, sitting at a computer and translating documents. And it's not being in a classroom teaching people, which all those things are amazing. All those things are great. I'm very grateful for my experiences. But ultimately, what I have been realizing in the last almost 6 years now since I started my business is that I'm on this earth to really empower people. And I've been focusing on women entrepreneurs for the last few years to be seen, to really claim their space in the world, claim the gifts that they've been given, and allow people to see these gifts and allow people to benefit from it, realize that they're not in you to just sit there. Yeah. They're in you to be showcased, and giving women this permission to just blast off, speak up, show up, step up, do all the things.
What was it like at the beginning of this empowerment journey? Because I assume, we're taught a certain way, or we act a certain way. It's in our initial program to like either be small or to not step fully into our authentic power. What was like dusting that off like, or stepping into that full energy like? What was it like at the beginning?
I have to say it felt extremely slow. It felt extremely frustrating, because it's almost like I had already lived an entire life, because I was pretty established in that career. Like that was a safe thing to do. I don't even need to think. I can translate, interpret. Like I almost want to say first nature, because that's what I've been doing for such a long time. I started teaching English when I was 14. I was obsessed with listening, like back in the days when there were cassette tapes or just CDs. I would pause and rewind back when the internet wasn't as prevalent as it is today, that you could literally just search lyrics for things. Down in Brazil with my dial-up connection, I didn't have those things. So I would just sit and listen to music and go back and try to write down, what did this person say? I don't know. Like, this is what I grew up with. And to go off on what felt like such a big tangent was not only hard, because especially my family didn't really understand what I was doing with newborn children. Like, why are you doing this? Just go take care of them. You can figure this out 18 years from now. And I was like, no, it has to be now. And I felt this pull that was so strong. And there was a part of me that thought it was going to be, wishful thinking overnight. Like, I'm following this and it's going to happen really fast. And many things have happened fast in some capacities. But that anxiety of, I can see, I've had this vision in my heart for so long. I've had people telling me this for so long. Why is it taking so long for me to be this master success? When in reality, I was already, so it was a huge, this has been the journey for me, is understanding that I've always been at the right place at the right time. I've always been doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing, because I couldn't have done anything different. And we always beat ourselves up, like, if I had only known, or the infamous question that people ask online all the time, what advice would you have given to your 18-year-old self, or to your early stages entrepreneur self? And I understand the concept of that question, because it's great for you to reflect, like, what have I learned? Awesome. But you wouldn't want to tell your old self that, because you wouldn't listen. Otherwise you would have done things differently. It doesn't matter. It took you this time to understand what you understand now. Now you better do something with it. So that's my answer.
Love that answer. And we haven't really dove into it much on the show, because that whole, you're always at the right place at the right time and blah, blah, blah. When we're going throughout that day, we're not really consciously thinking about that. Right. But I love this idea of, you wouldn't have listened, because it's so true. If I went back to myself when I was first starting my business and been like, hey, make sure you have these things and these things and these things, and make sure you're talking to this and this and this, I would have been like, what? I would have been too overwhelmed. I had to start from those baby steps and get to where I am today. And I'm sure it's very similar in your world too.
Yeah. And that's the journey that you get to share to people. And that's what I'm passionate about, and encouraging women to do is, please go on as much as you're comfortable with, as much as your journey allows and calls for, and talk about those specific things, because it can save people a lot of heartache when they hear from others that it wasn't easy. It wasn't overnight. They struggled. They pulled some hairs out. They had lots of arguments with their spouses and with their family. Let's be real.
I love it, because I don't know if you see this. Whenever I listen to podcasts or go to seminars or stuff like that, it's like, I did this, I realized this, and then it was this, and this super sexy ending transformation. But they skip over about 10 years, in the middle, where it's shit hits the fan, you get in, like you said, fights with your husband or whatever. And I can't stand that anymore. And it's I want to hear about that messy middle, because it brings it to light for us. And especially, this is a podcast for perfectionists, Well, speaking of which, actually, what were some of the perfectionism or imperfect, there we go, that's that word. What were some of the imperfect moments starting your business, either at the beginning or even last week?
Oh my gosh. So I started with network marketing. So that was a huge part of my journey in starting that path. I'm very grateful for having started, but there was lots of resentment with it because of my perfectionist tendencies in terms of success. And I'm so excited that you break down the perfectionist types, because some people I would not, before meeting you, and I've been understanding, the perfectionism more, I would have not called myself a perfectionist, because I'm a very, I love taking risks. I love taking action. So I don't really care much about the details, which is kind of like a downfall, because I don't consider some of the things before I take action, but other people would love to do things the way that I do it. It's a whole other conversation. But failure is a big thing for me. I'm okay with making mistakes as long as it leads to something bigger, bolder, better, you know.
It's like I'm looking in a mirror.
It's fine, but there is a perfectionist tendency right there. Is you can't stand the thought of starting something and then having to back down and be like, oh, never mind, that's not the path. But then everyone saw it, crap. And then realizing no one cares. In fact, all the pivots and the different things I've done recently, somebody, and I'm so grateful that they said that, because it's things people are thinking, but until they say it to you, you don't know, right? And now it makes me realize more people are thinking this, which is the opposite of what I usually tell myself people are thinking, is that, Marta, I admire you because you've reinvented yourself so many different times. So I think that has been the biggest imperfection in my journey that bothered me, because I wish I had known from day one. I don't anymore because of everything I just said. But I start with network marketing. I'm going to be $1 million earner in the company. I'm going to be like second to the CEO. Everybody's going to know my name. They're going to quote me and they're going to have graphics of me. Like, that was my goal. I don't start stuff to be just another one. I start stuff to be at the top, to be recognized on stage. In fact, I remember having a conversation with one of the people that started with me. And I was like, I want to be on stage. And she was like, I don't care. I just want to retire my husband. I was like, I don't want to retire my husband. I just want the glory. I just want people telling me that I'm amazing. She was like, you're crazy.
Oh my gosh.
This is a business to make money. And I was like, I don't know. So that is my answer. And it's been different versions of that. Like aspiring to be the greatest in everything that I do, standing out in programs that I join and things like that. And then now realizing that I was a success in all of these things. Just because I didn't reach the peak, it doesn't mean that it didn't work out, so that's a great message out there for fellow, whatever my type is called. Is it doers too?
No, it's overachievers. But I do want to talk about your quiz, because when we were on our group call the other day, you were talking about like, oh, this is where these people live in. And it's just like, oh my God, it's so good. So you have a quiz that's called Your 6-Figure Personality. First of all, how did you create these? How did you create it?
So they came from the Enneagram. So the Enneagram has been my favorite tool. You didn't know that?
Oh, tell me more. I love Enneagram. Yes.
So the Enneagram was really the first thing that I encountered. I want to say it was like around October 2018. So I was a couple of years into my business, but 1 year into my current business outside of network marketing, when I found myself, I'm an Enneagram 3, and I was like, I'm not crazy. I actually operate this way. And there are other people that operate. It was like I cried so many tears because I saw myself, but I also was so tempted to beat myself up to being this terrible human being that operates this way. But I was like, well, there are others that operate a different way. So it was really eye-opening. But in using the Enneagram in my coaching and encouraging it to my clients, but not wanting to be an Enneagram coach, because I didn't want it to be the main thing that I do. It's just a piece of what I do. I realized that not lots of people, they get intimidated by the idea that there are 9 types. Like, okay, I'm going to take this quiz. It's going to tell me, the test. It's going to tell me what type I am. They don't know what to do with that information. Whereas I had been diving deep, understanding all the other types and all of that. So what is a way to simplify this so that instead of 9, there are 3? Because there are different ways of grouping the Enneagram types.
Totally.
Based on like the centers and all of that. So I used one of the ways of grouping the types, which has to do with the stances. Aggressive stance, dependent stance, and withdrawn stance. Those are actually the comparison to the 3 types in my quiz: the feelers, the thinkers, and the doers. So of course, the types can be grouped in different ways that have similar characteristics, but something else that helped me with this was I went through a whole journey of studying more about the subconscious mind last year in 2021. I did extensive work with an RTT practitioner, rapid transformational therapy. And one of the things that I learned from her is that there are 3 main subconscious spheres in the subconscious mind of all human beings: a fear of being unsafe, a fear of not belonging, and a fear of not being enough. And I realized like huge light bulb moments, those correspond directly to the 3 personality type.
Oh,
So the fear of being unsafe or really craving security is feelers. They don't want to take risks because that may mean I'm not going to be safe. Then the fear of not belonging or fear of rejection corresponds to thinkers because they don't want to exteriorize what it is that's inside of them. Their mind is their favorite playground. I am safe here too. So a lot of safety issues there as well, but more related to rejection than not. And finally, for the doers, it's the fear of not being enough.
yeah. Oh,
If
yeah.
I don't feel like I'm enough, I'm just gonna stack my schedule full of stuff, pile all the things, because then I don't have to deal with those feelings.
Yes.
I'll just be doing all of the things. And then if I fail, that's okay because I have something else lined up.
Yeah. Well,
No
it's
one's
like,
gonna notice.
I feel like there's this constant, at least with unhealthy doers, at least because you and I are both doers.
Yes.
With unhealthy doers, because I'm also on Enneagram 3, fun fact, it makes a lot of sense.
Figures.
With unhealthy doers, it's like I'm constantly looking for external reasons to prove that I'm enough, right? But when I'm in a healthy state of doer, I'm like, I'm already enough from the inside out. I just get to let my freak flag fly and like go big or go home, which is like where I thrive. I would love to hear a little bit of like the positive and the negative side of the thinkers and the feelers as well.
Yeah. So for the feelers, it's a lot on the security, which the opposite of that is taking risks.
Yeah.
They always, if you know somebody that is like integrity is number 1 for them, even if no one is watching, they cannot do something wrong because it's a matter of integrity. Whereas for doers, it's like, no one's watching me. I got corners here, like, and it's so interesting because I have triplets, and they're very different. And it's very interesting to see that you were born with these things. Like I have proof right here. One of my kids, he cannot bear doing something incorrectly.
Yeah.
It bothers him. Even when I'm like, it's okay. It doesn't matter if I say it's okay.
Yep.
It's not okay. Whereas others are like, oh, whether you're watching or not, I'm going to do the wrong thing.
Yep.
Which is
I
fascinating.
think like jaywalking. It's like if it makes sense in my head, like there's no cars around, like I'll just go ahead and jaywalk. But my fiance will like flip out and like pull me back. And I'm like, there's literally nothing around. And it's like, oh my God.
Totally. That's my husband and one of my kids. So there you go. So that's the feelers, which I always say we need architects and we need engineers. You wouldn't want to walk on a bridge that I built. Do not recommend. Go on it or under it, right? But these people that are attention to detail and prize themselves in doing everything correctly, those are the people that you want to entrust with tasks such as building a building and a bridge. So those are feelers for you, which it seems kind of contradictory in many ways because you would think, oh, analytical, they don't have feelings. But the more you dive into it, you understand that it has to do with their internal feelings of integrity and all of that. Whereas doers, they bulldoze over all those things. They don't think twice. They just do stuff. But anyway, as for thinkers, their main thing is the idea of rejection because they're very eccentric people. They're type 4, 5, and 9. They're withdrawn. They interact with themselves before they interact with anyone else in the world, which is why they're the creatives, the artists, because they have this beautiful relationship with themselves. Whereas doers are so out of touch with themselves because they're so outside instead of inside. So it's interesting to see this the dynamics, and that's why thinkers, the unhealthy is not being able to connect with others, not being able to engage with others. And the reason being because they're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of somebody then saying, invalidating their ideas, when in their little world, if no one is a part of it, no one can criticize it and no one can reject them for it.
Oh, so how would you say with each of these, does it come into the 6-figure idea? Like, I mean, I don't know a single human on the planet who's like, 6 figures doesn't sound great. Like, I don't want to make a lot more money. Like, what does that look like for each of these to lean more into, like, for instance, what would the thinker do to lean more into that 6-figure mentality?
The whole concept of the quiz, obviously it's like clickbait. Everybody
totally.
It's like, I want to know what my type is, but the results correspond to what you are now. So that's the real ticket there, is to understand, because many people preach, right? You have to think like a millionaire. You have to think like a 7-figure CEO. And you're like, I don't know what they think. What do they think? Let's read books. Let's interview them. And you're thinking you need to become this completely different person.
Yeah.
And my perspective is, you already are the 7-figure version of yourself. Like, you already are the person that you're not going to become somebody else. It can't, it's impossible. It has to be you. Otherwise,
Yeah.
what are you doing? So the whole idea is, the more you embrace and starting with awareness, right? So you take the quiz, I tell you that you already are this person, and you're like, okay, great. This got me nowhere because I'm clearly not making 6 figures yet. So what's the gap?
Yeah.
And the gap is, you don't understand how you operate. So it starts there. You need to start catching yourself in those things, and then understanding the 2 other types. And that's why I simplified it to 3, because understanding 8 other thought types, too much. So if it's 2 others, then you can handle it more. It's a little bit more feasible, because you need a little bit more of the other 2 types in your life. You need to understand how you can operate a little bit more like them. So the growth path is what I talk about. So you already are this person. What is your growth path? So for thinkers, the growth path is learning more from doers and from feelers. So tapping into your emotions more, instead of being in your head so much. And also, just take the step. Just do it messy. Stop. No one cares if you make a mistake or not. No one's even looking at you the way that you think they are. For feelers, same thing. Stepping more into their thoughts and stepping more into the doing. Yeah. Not caring about the risks, and doing things. And then for doers, feeling more, allowing yourself to feel, and allowing yourself to think before you make impulsive.
Yeah. I saw somewhere that it's like, you should hire people, like, for instance, if you're a doer, you need to hire thinkers and feelers on your team, so that you have that brain in your world. Well, first of all, where can people take the quiz? Because I'm sure everyone's like, okay, which one am I? I don't know. Which one am I?
Totally. Well, you could just go to my website, martaspirk.com, and it's on the homepage. Or if you go to martaspirk.com/quiz, it takes you directly to it.
And we'll put the link in the show notes so people can just click it right there. What are the other Enneagram types? Because now I'm so curious. I know you said thinkers are 4, 5, and 9. Mm-hmm. What are with the doers and the
doers are 3, 7, and 8. So that corresponds to the aggressive stance, because they're always going against other people. Yeah. Right. And the feelers are 1, 2, and 6. And so when you were talking about hire people in your team, surround yourself, what's interesting in going into all of this is that you will see that you have been surrounding yourself with your opposites, right? My husband is a feeler, and he's an electrician, and he's like, black and white, let's do this thing. If I make a mistake, people will die, things will collapse.
Is he a 6 on the Enneagram?
He's a 1. He's a 1.
A 1. Beautiful. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And my sister's a 6, so also a feeler. Yeah. And, best friends, all the people that I surround myself with. And I mean, that's not to say you can't surround yourself with people that are the similar type, because they still fall potentially in different types, different nuances, right? So if you're a 3 and you have another doer friend, but they're a 7, they bring a different thing to the table. But it's all about understanding the healthy and unhealthy as well. Because if you surround yourself with other healthy of the same type person, then you can bounce ideas off each other and really feel seen and understand that you have similar struggles. That is so helpful.
I feel like it's also, you become who you surround yourself with, right? It's like I think it was Jim Rohn who's like, you are the 5 people you hang out with the most. I think that's always just so interesting. I would love to hear about your book. When did your book come out exactly?
January 5th, 2022.
Nice. Oh, it's recent. It's very recent.
Very recent. Yeah. It's been 5 months.
What was the process? Well, first of all, how did you come to the fact of like, nope, it's time, I'm going to write a book?
Oh my gosh. It was a couple of times when I said that. And then it was the actual time. So in 2020, I had met several author friends, like entrepreneurs, and I started thinking, it may be a good idea. But at first, lots of these people had done memoirs. So that was kind of where I was leaning towards. And then I started working with my current business coach, who has like 9 books. And he helped me in understanding that instead of memoir, publishing something that had to do with my coaching, that had to do with my business, so that it would be an entryway for people to want to work with me and get to know me. Of course, it would be sprinkled with my story, because there's no way around it when you want to illustrate and give examples and contextualize things. But the focus would be to have tangible takeaways that people could walk away with and apply it to their lives. Because, you know, learning about somebody's story is great. And there's probably lessons in there, regardless of if you relate to the stories or not. But when you have specific steps and then you illustrate those steps with your story and client stories, it makes it so much of a more richer experience for people. So that's where I landed. It's like, I'm going to talk about the 5 steps in my framework, in my coaching, because then that's going to solidify my message. I started seeing how this was more of like me committing to my message in my business. It was kind of like marrying my message. It wasn't like I was constantly switching. One day I talk about something and the next day, because that's what it felt like a lot in the beginning, is that it was the underlying thing of self-acceptance, self-love, but I didn't really know how to make it so specific. And, you know, I'll struggle with that, niching down. Who am I talking to? What's the transformation I'm providing? Blah, blah, blah. So with the book, it's like, no, this is my message. This is what I'm going to be talking about. And the process was, I realized really early on that I could not make myself sit and write 2,000 words or whatever it is that, you know, writing coaches tell you that you're supposed to do. But then my business coach and also the publishing consultant recommended me having a ghostwriter. And with that process, I actually recorded each of the chapters with my voice, especially with having a podcast, doing so much speaking.
My God.
It's so easy for me to just, hey, this is the concept. All right, vomit, all the things. Obviously, I went back into some of my resources and programs and I read through some of the stuff to make sure I got everything on there. I sent some of that material as well to the ghostwriter. But I didn't write my book. I spoke my book, which is so fitting for who I am as a person. And it made it so much faster than me writing it.
Okay, two things. One, for people who don't know what a ghostwriter is, can you just do like a quick little definition? And then I'll ask my second question.
Yeah. So a ghostwriter is a writer, but they're writing your message. So basically you give them, the book is going to be yours. Their name is not going to be showing up in any capacity. They're just formatting it and making a text, a readable text, and a logical text out of what you say. And fun fact, once the editor that I hired started going through my manuscript, she was like, thank you for using a ghostwriter, because this makes my job so much easier than when you are an amateur. Like, I have 2 English degrees. I'm not like 100% foreign to writing. This was my career and it still is, but I'm not a professional writer. And for an editor to then say, this made my job easier because the paragraphs are good, there is no run-on sentences or whatever have you. So that's something else to say. It's a great investment to have a ghostwriter.
Wow. I had never even thought of that was even like an option. That's amazing.
It made the whole process so much. I don't think I would have finished, or maybe I would have dropped it because of how much of a doer I am. I mean, I would have figured out a way, but because I can't just sit and I'm an extrovert, I need to talk to people. Like, you know how it goes. Writer's block, you start writing, no, that's not good, erase. I remember when I was writing papers, I would reread the same paragraph a million times before I would start on another one. Like, no, thank you. I'd rather
If you've been listening to the show, or if you're just a living, breathing person in the 21st century, odds are that you're a perfectionist. But did you know that there are 3 different types of perfectionism? After working with perfectionists for the past 2 years and being one myself for longer than that, I would have to be an ostrich with my head stuck deep in the sand to not realize that there are different styles of perfectionism, each one with their own self-sabotaging patterns. To find out which perfectionist type you are, plus learn helpful next steps that will get you out of those patterns of self-destruction, take the free quiz by following the link in the show notes or by going to lifecoachbaker.com/quiz. Now, on to the episode.
What What was the easiest part of the book to write, would you say? Or speak, I guess.
Let me think about that. I think the beginning was easier for me because I knew where I was getting at.
Yeah.
The end was actually not really done, and I had to work on it a lot with the editor, because then she helped me in the cohesiveness of, this is the message, take some stuff out that does not fit the main message of the book. And that's why it's so helpful to have a professional with you along the way, because they're outside of your head and they're able to kind of make sense out of what it is that you're trying to say from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah.
Right. So I didn't have the ending a whole lot, and she really helped me with the common thread with everything.
Yeah.
Of helping people with empowerment and making sure, it was sprinkled in every single chapter. So she was really helpful in that sense of, we need to tweak the intro and the conclusion of each chapter to make sure the transitions are good, and to make sure on their own they are working out great.
Yeah.
So I would say the beginning was easy. Probably the first and second chapters, because that's when I explained the Enneagram. So it's the really basic beginning of the whole thing. So it was easier to kind of convey. And then as we get more into the nitty gritty of forgiveness, empowerment, it was a little bit tougher, but also because I had to keep in mind, am I saying the same thing? Am I not contradicting myself? Am I expanding instead of repeating the same things?
Well, that brings me to, because I know earlier you said the book is a expansion and a real solidification of your five framework.
Yeah.
Can you give us like a little tease as to what I obviously want people to go get the book. It's amazing. So, but what word that you say with the 5, like what can you give us from those?
Yeah. So the whole idea was what I call a path. It's called the Empowered Woman Path. So after going through these steps, you are going to become a more empowered version of yourself. And it's a cycle. It's an ongoing thing. You're constantly working through it. It's not like, oh my gosh, took this pill and I'm this empowered person. Initially, yes, more empowered than you were when you first started, but rinse and repeat, keep working. So the first step is notice yourself. And that's when I introduced the Enneagram. Mm-hmm. Before you can empower yourself, you need to know what to empower. So let's look inside and, start looking at those patterns. I talk about childhood wounds, where those things originated, and paying close attention to that. The second step is listen to yourself, which is really a continuation of that. So how is this manifesting in your life? If you've noticed these patterns, you identify what your predominant type is, how you operate. How is this showing up when you communicate with others? How is this showing up in your self-talk? Because overall, our self-talk is very similar. We second guess ourselves. We tell ourselves we're not good enough, but there's specific details to each of the little voices in our heads that say specific things, and probably because of things we heard in childhood that were different because we were different people. Yeah. So I talk about all of that. I talk about the specific things that each of the 9 voices say inside our heads. Then the third step is forgive yourself, which is the midway point and one of the most important steps, really, because once you see all these things about yourself, the temptation is to hate yourself. Yeah. Wow, I've been doing this for years. I've been so mean to myself. And it's like, here you go again. No, stop. This is the midway point to stop. And really for many, to be the first time when you actually embrace all of it, because everybody else is on a similar journey of figuring out things about themselves. And honestly, patting yourself on the back too, that's going into empowerment more, but patting yourself on the back for even taking the step to acknowledging these things about you, because many people live in denial, live in autopilot. They don't want to change. They don't know what to change. So how would they? But you're, making the effort to really understanding who you are. And that is so important for your family, for your clients, for everyone around you. The world could use more self-aware people. So, So the fourth step is empower yourself. And now you're actually able to empower yourself because you know what it is there to empower. So reminding yourself of the amazing things you've already accomplished, really reminding yourself of your greatness. That's the whole point of the entire book. And the empowerment message is taking personal responsibility for everything, not just for the good, not just for the bad, for all of it, embracing it fully and recognizing yourself in the process. And then the final step, the fifth step, is transform yourself. And I always say there's a reason why that is the last one, because if you were to try to transform yourself, first step, you would want to become a different person. That's not the point. The point is to become a more self-loving and self-accepting version, but you can only love and accept what you know. So that's why we have to go through that journey first.
I just got chills up and down. Oh, well, and one of the things I love is honestly step 3, because I feel like that's the one people forget or just ignore entirely.
Yeah.
And they like try to like, okay, I know I'm doing all these shitty things. Okay, time to change it right now.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, hold on. Like, no, we have to love ourselves first and always. Like that. Oh, I love it. I love it. That's so good. Where can people get The Empowered Woman?
So they can go to Amazon, and there's the paperback, of the Kindle, and also Audible. So if you're a listener person, you can go to Audible and listen. And you, if you want a signed copy, you can go directly to my website, martaspirk.com, and I'll ship it to you.
And I'm assuming you're the Audible narrator.
Yes. A couple of people volunteered and offered, and I was like, no, friend, thank you,
I have
but
a
no,
podcast.
thank you. It has to be, it has to be my voice.
Oh my gosh, that's absolutely incredible. Well, I could talk to you for hours. There's so many things I would love to pick your brain on, and I don't have enough time to do even any of them. But one of the things I know when you and I first talked way back when was you said this idea that everyone's on their own journey, or everyone's journey is unique. And this is really a foundation to your teaching, to who you are as a coach. What would you say the birth of that was? And then how do you, I'd love for you to expand on it a little bit.
I think it really was having triplets for me, because, and that's something that I talk about in the book, I felt this urgency that couldn't be ignored of, I need to figure this out, and I need to figure it out now. Obviously from a beating myself up perspective that I've outgrown now and that I understand better, but I only get this one shot. Like, that's something that my husband and I constantly tell ourselves as our kids are growing, is that we're not having one child and then we learn from our mistakes and we do it a little bit differently with the other one. It's all happening at the same time. And this is all we know, though. This is the only experience that we have, because we don't have any other kids. And so I feel like that was the main thing for me, to be like, I never asked for this. So in fact, I have my TED Talk where I go a lot deeper on, I was not expecting this. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want it. I had so many mixed feelings, as any mother of multiples will tell you. Like, I love my kids. My gosh, they're inside of me, but my entire life is going to turn out very different from what I had envisioned from when I was a little girl, when I got married, when I started trying to conceive. And it really felt like I was very lost. Like, I think of Mario Kart, when you go on the banana peel. That was me.
You know exactly how to speak directly to my soul. It's insane.
That was me. And I was like, what's the direction? Where do I go? But it's not just what's the direction, where do I go? There are 3 kids depending on me for this freaking direction, you know? So that's when I was like, no, I need to do something. I need to share something. I need to go somewhere. Where is it? And it was a lot, you know, from anxiety, from fear, from guilt, from shame, from this responsibility. But it put me on this path of, none of that, friend. It has to be from a place of self-acceptance, of self-love, because how can I teach my kids something that I don't know? And this is really the image that came to me, especially having a little girl myself and knowing the experience of growing up as, you know, a woman, is starting to think of the moment when all of them, especially her, are going to start thinking that, you know, she's not beautiful, that other people are better, that she's going to be rejected, that people are blatantly going to say, I don't like you. I don't want to be around you. What do I do with that? Because I'm not her and I can't protect her from any of this. This is going to happen. I can't do it. Like, the realization of that, you know, as a mom is heartbreaking. Yeah. But then I realized I can learn this for myself. so that she will see it in me. And then I can better support her through those moments because I have put myself through that fire. And this is the same thing in terms of entrepreneurship as well. Is me going out, speaking, publishing my book. Sure, I'm showing my kids the possibilities that they could do these things if they wanted to, but on a deeper level, what I've been understanding is that I am putting myself through such challenges that many people on their lifetime are not going to ever. I mean, starting from leaving my country, and all the crazy things that I've been up to. But when they're going through like failure and losing baseball, little league crap and feeling like the worst human beings on earth, I get to look them in the eye and from experience, not just because I love them and I want to protect them, from experience say, this is one of many and you're going to be fine.
Oh. You're so good. You're so good. I always ask guests these two questions. And the first is, what is a goal that you're working towards or that you achieved this week that we get to celebrate with you?
Oh my gosh, that I achieved this week.
Or one that you're working towards. But I know you're a doer, so you probably achieved one this week. So
okay, well, I achieved, but I'm still working on it because it's an ongoing thing, especially after publishing my book. I have felt this nudge to work with authors and to encourage people to get published, because I heard a lot in the beginning of my journey, even before I wanted to publish a book, people saying it's a waste of money. You can get credibility different ways. It's going to collect dust. No one cares because there's so many other people that are publishing books. And I understand that aspect of it, but there's also the aspect of nobody can write it like you. So if you know how to promote it, how to leverage it, it's going to be impactful and it's going to be different. And if you don't let it, it's not going to collect dust, because that's what I'm doing, So last week I hosted the summit where I showcased 9 authors and not only showcased them to continue the longevity of their book, but I also talked to aspiring authors about the possibilities, looking at these other women and seeing, wow, why not me? Instead of, I'm just another one, So that's something that I just did, but that based on the outcome of this event, I know that it's something I want to continue on doing in different ways, in different events, because publishing a book is such a way of solidifying your message. And if you're really serious about, that's what it is. If you're really serious about what it is that you're sharing, it's a great way to, put it out there.
That's so exciting. Oh my gosh. And you just reminded me, thank you, because I want to go back and watch the video from last week as well. And then last but not least, what is a way that you were imperfect this week? Let's celebrate our imperfections.
It's hard. What do you mean I wasn't perfect? There was no instant.
Wow, just toss right there.
What was the way that I was imperfect this week? Something that I know is not my forte, but I've been working towards is meals for the family. I've come a long way because I'm the practical person, like throw things together. And I have found different ways of making things different and still seem like they're more elaborate than they are, just, for taste wise and to help everybody. But this week I haven't had a whole lot of a plan. We came out of a holiday. I had family visiting. So I'm kind of getting back into the swing of things. And it was fun for a while for me to try on new recipes and come up with a new menu. So I want to get back to that because I kind of fell off the wagon a little there.
Amazing. Thank you for being so open with that. The reason I asked that question is something we talked about earlier. Hearing all those gurus and personal development people just being like, and then you do this and this and this, and you never mess up. And it's just like, I want to highlight those moments because it's so important for people to see the full scope. Last but not least, where can people find you? Where can they learn all about the amazingness that you provide?
So you can find me anywhere on social media, Marta Spirk, my website, martaspirk.com. Go check out my podcast. Nicole was just on it. Fire, the Empowered Woman podcast. And you can look for my book as well. Like we said, The Empowered Woman, The Ultimate Roadmap to Business Success.
And we'll put all those links in the show notes as well. Marta, you're amazing. I'm so grateful that you were able to be on the show. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
This was so fun.
Yay. And I'm so happy that Marta could be here. That was so fun. Again, it's just so cool to see how a month and a half of mentorship and closeness can really impact you. It's so fun hearing then and now knowing where we are now. Sweet friends, you can get your copy of The Empowered Woman, her book all about the ultimate roadmap to business success at martaspirk.com. It's right there at the front, or you can click the link in the show notes as well. If you have been looking for a community, specifically an online community, I really strongly recommend checking out the Empowered Woman School. We meet 3 times a month, which is awesome. I've never heard of someone doing that, especially for the price point that Marta has it at. And it's just such a hive mind. I love it. I love it. I love it. And she's just a wealth of knowledge, unbelievable wealth of knowledge. I feel very fortunate to be in the school. You can learn more about the Empowered Woman School all on, again, martaspirk.com. It's at the very top bar. And if you like this episode, share it on social, share it with a friend. If you do share it on social media. If you do share it on social media, please tag me and Marta. She is at Marta Spirk on there. And I know it would just mean so much to us. It's like a big hug anytime you do that. If you haven't already, please rate and review the show and also any other podcast you listen to. It is one of the best things you can do for a podcaster because it helps bump it up the charts. I actually just talked to someone recently saying that they typed life coach into Apple Podcasts, and I was the first one that came up. And that is entirely devoted to you all who have done the reviews. Thank you so much. That means so much to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I almost burst into tears when she said that. I was like, that is just a true testament to my community. And that is just, it makes my heart swell. Thank you guys so much. I love you all deeply, deeply, deeply from the bottom of my heart. And I hope you have a beautiful week. Bye, friends.
Thank you so much for listening to the Life Coach Baker podcast. Don't forget to go take the free quiz and find out what perfectionist type you are by visiting the link in the show notes or by going to lifecoachbaker.com/quiz. Also, take a moment to rate the podcast and write a review. It is the best way to get the word out there. Plus, you'll get the chance of having your review read on the show. Until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.